Okay. How are we on the intro? We're just gonna dive right in.
Hi, this is Bill.
Hi, everybody.
So we finished the last podcast we finished with Jason Bourne. So therefore we
So anyway, we brought Bill back from the last podcast.
Yep.
That would be the last one, I think, in the order that these are going out. So we're speaking
maybe
on a continuous timeline. Don't change your mind tomorrow and make me drop that in between these two.
Sure.
I've had to stop numbering them now, and I only go by names,
Yes.
which means then I have to name
Yes.
them as the
podcast
videos
Bill?
go on there. Yeah, which I don't like doing that either. A number seems to make more sense. But what I've ended up with is I've had these file names now that started as I have one that started as episode 43, then got delayed because you put some more things in, and then was 47, but then was actually released at like 51 or something like that. So each step of the way, though, because the audio says 43, then by the time I mix the thing again, then it's 40. It was like, so this thing was like 43, then 46, then 51 final .mov was the. But that's the only way that. So I had to trace it back though, because if I had a problem with the sound, I can't go to 51.
Yeah.
Because then I'll be fucking up some different episode. And so
I told you were overly optimistic with this. I'm just saying, like I warned that might happen.
Yeah. So anyway, so we are back. Bill, I don't even know where to start with you other than
because you have a foundation for.
I want to get into the awesome stuff, and Julian will not let me.
Yes.
So,
we're not going to talk about the CIA, but because you have a really cool stuff you have going on. So before we can go into that, please explain where you come from, so that we are not talking about PTSD from a firefighter who's saving cats on weekends.
Sure. Right. Yeah. So I spent the second half of my 20s in the Army, specifically in Special Forces, and I was at 5th Special Forces Group. I was a Green Beret, an 18 Charlie, which was an engineer sergeant. I was on an amazing ODA, so an incredible 12-man, Special Forces team, where I was able to not only learn a ton and the progression or the timeline to get to that point, which was like 2 years to get my Green Beret, but also the rest of my time at Group was spent on a very high-level team. We did within unconventional, we're an unconventional warfare unit, and we had a very unconventional mission set and tasking.
So many questions right now.
But yeah, so that's a bit of my background. Special forces.
Define.
Exactly. Like we want to ask so much stuff. Anyway, so yeah.
So first off, by unconventional, are you saying alien technology?
Yeah, exactly. This conspiracy theory is coming right up. Yeah. Exactly.
Like I say to you guys yesterday, like it's one of those things. When you see how sausages are made, you don't want to eat another hot dog.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
kind of in that line. So there are, and where my story now is, I think, more personal is there are a lot of stories, there are a lot of movies, there's a lot of books written.
Right.
The stuff that I did and the stuff that my team did and many others like me, there's not going to be any books written about it. There's not going to be any movies, any stories, and a lot of it is one of the battles that we are fighting against is the sensationalism, the Hollywoodism, and how that has an influence on people and how they view themselves.
Right?
Yeah, for sure.
And not being able to talk.
Not being able to really talk. You're not really telling anybody what you were doing. In many cases, there's like a lot of times, like it's just not. You're not gonna really bring that conversation up.
At dinner, no. So it's not gonna happen.
And
but by the way, people can relate anyway. The shit you would talk about. Well, I mean, what am I going to bring about, like my MMA fights?
Right.
Compared to that, like, who can talk to you about this? It's not like any of us can relate anyway.
Right.
Yeah, so that also must be hard, because you know how much bullshit there is when people talk about it,
right?
But you can't say it.
Well, and what people usually want to talk about is what they see in the movies.
Yes.
And it's just like, at that point, you're kind of like, do I choke you right now, or do I just smile and kind of say yes?
And you chose to be
But honestly, smiling and just being like, oh yeah, that's also a form of avoiding what you really do sometimes need to say, which is like, no, this is like not, you have it all wrong.
Yeah.
But some folks want to believe it.
But on a personal level, does he weigh on you?
Yeah.
Because you can't share what was a traumatic thing, no matter which way. Winning doesn't mean it's not traumatic, and since you're here, it means you won. So, but that must weigh on you like, because coming back, we'll go into this because you're going to give us your opinion, but I heard a lot of people coming back from those places saying that the hardest thing was being here at home and sometimes realizing that's who you fought for.
Yeah, so there's definitely, one of the things that definitely weighs on me is like, when you start to question what was it for?
Right.
That is not a question that is at that level too,
one, right?
with what's on the line. Like that's, in my mind, that's the biggest one. There's what was it for? And then also I didn't do enough. I should have done more. I should have stayed in longer. I should have, I didn't really contribute all that I could. So for me, those two questions have been
right. So
very
is
hard.
that why you see people, even though I can only imagine from movies how hard it was over there, so I'm sure I can't imagine what it was, but is that why they go back? You see so many guys, I mean, you had a family, we're going to explain all this, but this is why they go back 3 times, 4 times, 5 times, because of their mates out there. Like, I need to do more to contribute. Contribute toward your mates there or to the country that you want to serve to?
In my experience, when you're willing to give your life up for a cause and for people left and right of you, it was never the policy. Like it wasn't the so-and-so's policy or whatever. It was always that like true brotherly love.
And the cause.
Yeah.
Your country, your patriotism. Yeah.
And so, when you're willing to give yourself for that, what else can really compare to that? Is
there a survivor's guilt in this? Where you're like, some of them didn't come back. The fact that I come back means I didn't give it all?
I personally don't really have too much of that. Obviously I have, friends that were killed and whatnot. I don't have too much of the survivor's guilt. I have more of a shame with not doing enough. Like I feel like, and for years I felt like I did not live up to my Green Beret.
Because?
Because I said like, our mission was an unconventional mission, even with an unconventional thing. But what I wanted to do is I wanted to get the traditional kind of special forces combat deployment to Iraq, Afghanistan, whatever. And like I put so much weight and validation into that when that didn't happen, and that's the thing about service, like you don't get to pick your mission.
Right.
All you do is raise your hand and say, whatever it is you want me to do, I will go do with everything I have, physically, mentally, emotionally.
Oh, okay.
And so a lack of control and say over your mission, really for me, when I thought, okay, at least there's like this basic minimum that I need to hit, and then everything else is a bonus. And when you work for the government in the military, it's just like that. You don't get that. Yeah. And so for me, I felt like because I do have such a tremendous amount of respect for the Green Beret and for the military and everything, but I was a Green Beret, and the people that went before me, that gave up their lives, that made that worth something dying for. And when I feel like I didn't do what I wanted to do or what I should have done, then it's just like I feel like I didn't live up to it. And so personally, it's super vulnerable. There's a lot of times where it's like, man, I feel like an absolute fraud, absolute phony. And that will combine with like, I'm still very good at what I'm capable of doing. And personally taking myself out of the game, that was a vicious tailspin that, and I've been open about it, eventually led to like, questioning, taking my life. And that was,
you told me that.
That was like, because the other thing with that is people don't, and the thought of like a suicide. So there's obviously a significant problem within the military, within the veteran community, definitely in the U.S. It was one of those things like you can never really understand it. And I had a guy actually tell me like, I don't get it. You have family, this, that. And
I'm sure they don't.
He's like, that just seems so selfish. And I said to him like, well, I'm glad you have that opinion because that tells me you've never questioned taking, And I said, for me, it's not a function of it being selfish. It's more a function of me dragging my family down into the hole further through the misery that I know at that moment I'm 99% sure I'm not going to be able to get better. Right. And I'm going to drag them through this. Tell me who's being selfish now. Yeah. So if I remove myself,
that's what people never understand.
Then, and that's
it's always that. People don't commit suicide to save themselves.
That's not a rational...
They do it to save their family because they think they'll wait on their family. Most people that kill themselves do it for others. In their mind, which is all that matters, is their mind at the time.
Right. Also, I think because you tend to have a pretty good sense of community and camaraderie with the people you were deployed with, as you do return, you kind of see over the years, as the years go by, you can see some of that wreckage play out in other people's lives. Yeah. So very often, I think when people get in your position, they're like, fuck, this is happening. Fuck, I feel this. I've seen this, I've seen that. And it's like, I know where this fucking road goes. Yeah. And it almost does kind of become this thing that you just end up on top of, you know?
Yeah, and not, you know, and not being able to really dig in and do the work and try to find out just really who you are. You're like, in my mind, that's what's you're never going to break free of that disordered thinking where, you know, you're not being committing or questioning taking your life is not there's not a rational thing going in there. It's very emotionally driven, but there's like a bug in the system. Yeah. And there's like, that's the bug. But it keeps going back. Yeah. And it keeps going back. And it's just like, you know, and of course I don't have any claim to have the solution for this, but in my experience, like it really does take that, okay, I need to really look at like who I am. Some of it's, I'm no longer that person, you know, and I, read the news and continue to stay in contact with my friends and everything. And, there's a part of me that still wants to be there, but like, that's
because you can make a difference.
Yeah. And but then you buy into that's like, that's the only way I can make a difference. And so
going back to that. Yeah.
Because I see it often. I have family and friends that have done active deployments and come back. Is very often when someone does come back, there is a sense of not having a purpose. Yeah. And you come back, and the problem is nobody comes back rich. But you usually, if you come back from a deployment, you'll have a little flush cash because very often you've been living, so you don't have living expenses. Yeah. And so they come back with a little bit of extra money. They don't really have to work right away. And so there's this, just like you said, you're like, well, I'm still useful there. Right. And then, but with time, shuffling your feet here, you become like a man without a fucking home.
I mean, I got out of the Army. So I was down at Fort Campbell, at 5th Group, got out, went back to New Jersey, where I had my beautiful wife, 2 incredible stepkids, a gym where there was a community and everything like that. And it was just like, are you kidding me? Like, this is not... And I don't want to sound like I was above and that life was below, but to the point of like, what is my purpose here? Yes. What am I doing? And also like the level at which my entire life was preparing me to operate at, and the level at which we were operating at, all of a sudden it was like, I just feel completely lost without a purpose.
But as you said, but there's a person too. Like you joined the military, you were 25. Let's be honest, a man at 25 is not himself yet. He hasn't found, like, I don't know, you grew up faster than me, that's for sure. But me, it took me at 31 to start to go, and a business at 35 to turn into a man. Before that, it was like, So you went faster, but still, the special forces shaped a man at the time. That was not necessarily you particularly, but who they needed you to be at that time. Right. Whether you want or not is not the issue, because I know which training you went through. They need someone, and they're going to make that. Yeah. Whether or not it's you or not is another problem. But so they shaped that person, and that's who came back. Mm-hmm. But that's not necessarily you. And on top of it, that is certainly not you, married with 2 kids and a gym. Right? So there's a moment where that has to hit you. Yeah. And so who am I? You're not the Army boy anymore.
And to add to that, almost like an insult to injury thing, I did go in at 25. So I wasn't 18, 20 years old, like really not having done anything in life. I'd already gone to college. I was an All-American soccer player, tons of like experience in the athletic world. I was working for PricewaterhouseCoopers, which is like a top public accounting firm, making a bunch of money.
You're an accountant?
The worst. It was awful.
So Jason Bourne started as an accountant. Sure. There you go. You don't strike me. Yeah, okay, whatever.
But that was the thing. What's funny about that though, I got into that because eventually I wanted to use that as a stepping stone to go to the FBI. Because the FBI would take accountants, lawyers, and like law enforcement people. So I was like, okay, this is what I'm going to go do. Had to eventually face the music. So like, okay, what am I going to do in life? I can't
accounting.
It was either like never think about going into the Army and pursuing special forces ever again, or go and do it. And I wasn't prepared to not try. And I think that's like the biggest thing to encourage people, or to just tell people, like, if you don't try, you might fail, but not trying is the ultimate failure. And so, what are we really doing if we're not trying?
You can fail in life not trying.
Bingo.
Yeah. People don't realize that. They think by not training, they weren't going to fail. No. You can fail too. Yeah. Just as bad. Trust me.
Yeah, because when you fail doing something, it's real. Like, I don't like to call it a failure. You're learning something.
Exactly.
You have the opportunity to learn. Yeah. And if you don't, again,
but that's on you. That's different.
So anyway, I was like, all right, I've got life experience. I've I'm not going to get brainwashed. Right. And
okay, that's you don't know how this works.
Right? Yeah, and it's just like,
I've seen the movie.
A little naive with it, and this and that, and it was always like, and I fought it hard when I was in it. I thought I was doing a good job of like, okay, being a Green Beret or being in the Army isn't going to be like my entire kind of piece of the pie.
Yeah.
And it took up a lot more than I gave it credit for. So now factor that into I'm out. Mm-hmm. I thought I had this protection. I thought I hedged against this, kind of brainwashing.
Right, so you have that too now.
And then that added to it. I'm like, oh my God, I thought I was protected. I thought I was good. I thought I had enough of a bit of a safe space between, the just turning you into whomever and being someone else. So that lack of sense of self and feeling lost without purpose, like it was...
So So you had both sides. You realize you lost your sense of self, and you don't. Then you have their sense of self, and you get home that requires an entirely different sense of self.
Yeah.
Oh yes.
Yeah. So it was definitely, and it still is, And I think that the transition process from active duty to civilian life now. I don't want it to just be a light switch where like I never remember that stuff, because I have a ton of great memories and met amazing people and really had the privilege and honor to serve alongside amazing people. And so I don't want to let go of all of that.
No, plus there's pride to have in this.
Yeah. Totally. And there's a lot of value there. But, to what we've talked about, like,
how do you go back?
How do you go back? And if now you're trying to recreate, if the Green Beret was John, and now I'm Bill here, or Mike, let's just say that, and like Mike needs to live now. John needs to stay the fuck out of it.
Yes, because John is not helping.
Right, John's not helping.
John, when you have a fight with a wife, John is not helping.
John is not helping.
Yeah, John knows one thing: he's going to win at all costs.
And a lot of it, like what worked for John, does not work right now, because the environment is completely different. Your life is completely different.
John was not about learning anyway.
Well, I think
John was about doing shit.
Is the thing? Is that in John's case, John had an environment with which was required, skill set required, everything that was built for that, and that just is not equipped for at home in a family,
and plus John
work, or eating shit from a customer, or any of that.
John had the luxury of being black and white.
Yeah,
to a degree.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? Like in the sense of, this is where I am, this is what I do, done. Like with all the shit I can only imagine that did not go correctly, that for sure. But at least there was that.
And I'm not the only one to say this. It is pretty easy and it's pretty simple to be in. And with a lot of it, it's like, when I would say goodbye to, and the hardest thing I really had to do was say goodbye to Kay and the kids. Right. And say goodbye to that family. I never got to see them. I wasn't living with them. We were living in 2 different time zones. Saying goodbye to somebody hundreds of times, not really knowing when the next time you'd either say hello to them again, or
if you are going to say,
or if you're going to, that was definitely hard. But there was still within that, it was pretty clean. It's like, okay, well, you're in the Army, we live here, you have to do your job, we're doing our life. But then, you kind of came back, and I always felt like I was in the wrong world. When I was in the Army, I was not with my family. Mm-hmm. And when I was with my family, I was usually thinking about other stuff that I had to do there. And so it was this weird in-between of, while I was always in the wrong world. And then I got out into this world that we had talked about and kind of, fantasized about and been like, this is going to be awesome, it's going to be awesome. And then I remember pulling up, literally the first day thinking, like this is permanent now, and a little bit of that kind of dread with just the permanence of it.
Yeah.
And
and being equipped for it. Because by day 2 you go like, oh, that's a different set skill. Wait, what? I go to the gym. These kids. How do I deal with those?
And they were, you know, they're great kids, and I hope, and they were way more patient than I probably give them credit for.
Yeah. I want to kill mine half the time. Dude, I'm with you. I totally get it. The kids. Well, like I'm the only one thinking that.
Right.
You love them half the time.
Yeah.
And I hope you all know that. If you're watching, just know that. But that's true. Come on, all parents go through it. Women never want to say it, but they feel exactly the same. Little shit half the time. Yes, that's true. I can say it. No one questions my love for my daughter, so I can say it. No, but that's... Yeah. By the way, like, it's stressful. That alone is stressful. Like, especially... Because when did you get out?
End of 2015.
So 4 years ago. So they're like what? 8, 10,
Yeah, it's
11?
been actually exactly 4 years.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah, 11.
Yeah, so they're 8 and 11?
They were, about that.
Teenage.
And they only knew me too from like being the man in the box in the computer. I mean, I would see them on 4-day weekends every now and then, but you know, if they were with their dad, so I'm their stepdad, if they were with their dad, you know, then I wouldn't really see them. And it was a very challenging, you know, very, very challenging dynamic, just because of logistics and time and stuff. And so, you know,
but it's challenging by itself.
Yeah.
So then you coming back not knowing how to be what they call a normal human being.
Right.
I can only imagine like, having to do with normal shit when you're not coming from a normal environment. Oh. Yeah, especially John. I don't think John likes kids. They don't do what you want. They don't do what you want.
Right.
They don't listen, that's for sure.
Yeah.
I know. I totally get that. Yeah, I don't have a choice, but I totally get it.
So at this point, you know, you've been back. You kind of had that shock of like, fuck, this is it, or is this it? You know, all that stuff. And what do you do from there? I mean, does it get worse before it gets better? How did that go for you?
It got worse before it got better.
Usually things go that way.
Yeah. So I didn't really unpack my bags for about a year.
Okay.
I kept my Green Beret with it where I would see it every morning as a reminder of like, well, I can always go back. And so about I don't know if it was like 3 or 6 months, I was going to go back. My buddy called me up and was like, hey, we're going to Afghanistan. I need a good dude. Are you in? I was like, yes, thank you. Okay, this is the deal.
Yeah.
And you know, and the great thing is like I would be there part time. So now I would go into so I was in active duty, and then we have a National Guard, so it's like part time, basically Army. Yeah. But like that's not part-time.
Here comes the bullshit. Yeah, exactly. Yes.
And I'm trying to be like, okay, well it's great. I'll be there sometimes, but I'll also be back here.
But it's not gonna be like that, honey. I don't. Right. Yeah, don't worry.
Total bullshit.
My daughter tried that one on me all the time. Yeah, I know that one.
Yeah. So then I'm thinking like, okay, it'll be the best of both worlds, and Kay was pretty much like, yeah. But she was like, listen, if you can't
smart
move
women,
on,
it's always a problem.
Completely saw through it.
Exactly.
Yeah. And was like, look, if you can't move on and live in your life right now with us and with me and the kids right now, like when will you ever? And like if this is what you have to do, got it.
That is a good point.
And it was just like, you know, immediate, like hit the wall, like, okay, that question really rocked me to the core. And you know, I was either going to do that or talking to my friends and, you know, other government agencies who were recruiting me to work for them.
Don't go there, because the questions, I see Tyler's face, he's like, so, 1964, did you know? Yeah.
16-year-old boy went to Harvard.
Yes.
Gets involved in CIA.
The MK Ultra product. Yes, exactly. Yeah.
Look into it.
Yeah. There's no shortage of that. So that was going to be it, though. That was going to be the escape route. You know, if it just got too much, if I wasn't willing to face and confront the things that I really needed to, which it wasn't about my job, it wasn't about this or that. It was me. It was all about me.
Yeah, but okay, again, like you have developed a set of skill to a very high level. They have to go somewhere. Mm-hmm. I don't think you can't go to the top and not use it.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like this like, I mean, we can talk about being addicted to training, all that stuff, but like the fight that you build to an nth degree to be able to deal with certain things has to go somewhere. I got to train. I'm not don't get me wrong, like MMA is not the army, but you've developed a certain level of aggression and not necessarily liking violence, but you have dealt with violence on a regular basis, on a very, you know, intimate... That fight has to go somewhere.
Right.
And that set of skill has to be expressed in something. Otherwise, there's a voice that goes, dude, where are you turning into? It has to go somewhere.
Plus, there's a lot of mental and emotional resources that go into getting good at anything, let alone getting good at something, though, that is very high stakes, very high adrenaline, very intense.
Right.
So to get good at that requires a lot of very intense emotional experience to get there.
Yeah.
You're running against your whole body screaming at you for thousands of hours accumulated. You know, like everything is made to really force you to change into that person that has that skill set.
And you're proud of it.
And then, and you should be. But
and you
then,
should be.
But then when you're done, it's like, fuck.
No, but you're...
Right.
You turn into Superman. Yes. Did you see Clark Kent? Right. So, no, but seriously, Clark Kent is a vision of Superman of the human condition in the street, which is that wussy guy with glasses and everything. Superman is not his suit. Remember, like Kill Bill? He's right about that. Superman is Superman. Clark Kent is his vision of us. Right. So once you turn into Superman, that's how you look at Clark Kent.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So John looks at Mike going like, Mike is Clark Kent. He's not Superman.
Right.
That's a hard one to look. And like, you want me to turn into Clark Kent every day?
Right.
And never ever go back to Superman, but I am Superman.
Right.
Not that it's true, but at that moment, that has to be how you look at it.
Well, I'm certain it's different, obviously, but like you take someone like Eddie Van Halen. He's probably not going to be playing a lot of shows in front of 100,000 people at this point in his life, right?
Yeah.
However,
Keeps playing.
I bet he still plays the fucking guitar.
Yeah.
Now, could you imagine though that him going from the highest adrenaline, highest stake, top of his career, still can do it, still can play.
He cannot do music ever again. Yeah.
And it's like,
But and that's, you know, and I think within the veteran space too, like you see that people like really hanging on to that because it's.
But did you find an activity where you could put those skills into? I mean, no, I don't know how, but yeah.
So to some of that, no. There's some skill sets that I feel like I have, and some of my experiences for what I was doing and trained for. No, it's not healthy to put that stuff.
So what helped you? I mean, I know that's a choice you make every morning. Obviously, that's what helped you go through and the family and all that stuff. Yeah. But at some point, you kind of, before it got bad, but then it started to get better.
Yeah, so it definitely it wasn't good for a while, you know, and actually, so we had a family friend, a colleague, a coworker, whose husband committed suicide about a year ago, a couple weeks ago, a year. And, you know, of course it's sad. You feel sympathy for her and the family and stuff. But for me, what really kind of woke me up was like, that could have been me. Yeah. Like very real, that was not a stretch.
Because that had reflected some of the thought patterns you would see.
Yeah, so he was a SEAL. He was at, active duty, and that was a big wake up call.
So you had thought about it for yourself, and then you kind of see the aftermath.
Yeah, it's not
so what I saw was what I really saw was how it scared the shit out of and crushed Kay.
Yeah.
And I was like, I can't.
And you saw what he did to his family, I'm guessing.
For sure, his wife, his kids, like that. Their life changed forever in a way I could never imagine. But I saw how much it really rocked Kay, and I think I knew too at that point that she wasn't just feeling incredibly sad for Sarah and her family. I think it probably was not a stretch to be like that could have been. Yeah. And so that was really I think. Yeah, that was a big one. Wake up, because that could have been me. And so last Veterans Day, I actually ran a marathon on a assault runner. without training. Yeah, it was. But like, you know, the thing is, be like, oh, you know, how'd you do that, this and that? Did you train? Like, no, I had a broken ankle.
Not how. Why?
Well,
that's the only question that matters. But yeah.
And so for me, there was two parts. It was one personal to say like, how am I going to continue my service as well, and like, what's my purpose going to be? Yeah. And so we are facing a problem within the veteran community, within active duty. Talk about that, yeah. We have to like, suicide is a problem. We need to be at least having a conversation. Don't know the answer, but we need to first start by having a conversation.
But even past suicide, like just like you feeling even like shit coming back.
Yeah,
that alone, because that's hard on everybody.
Yeah, the ultimate like downfall of it
is suicide. But even before that, because there has to be substance abuse and shit like that.
Well, that's one of the things is that so the suicide numbers are extremely high and alarming on their own. The problem is there's a lot of people that are adjacent to that point. There's way more lives that are closer to that than they are to normal. Yeah. You know, in that space, right? So you have so many people that are on the skid that are drinking too much or
even if they're not committing suicide, they're still not good.
Just because you didn't kill yourself, that doesn't mean you're good. Yeah. That means you've done the bare minimum to not kill yourself. And so we want good, not just not as awful. Exactly. You know?
But isn't that our responsibility?
Yeah.
That's what kind of kills me in this debate is like, we shaped you into something, and I know very well how they did it. And during the seminar, we talked about that. I know through the nervous system, there are ways to reshape someone. I know exactly what they did, but then they don't change it back.
No. And so we fail at a very, very fundamental level on any sort of reintegration, you know, and it's, so, and if you look at warrior cultures and tribes of the past, they did a much better job of that.
The Maoris, I was talking to them when I was there, they had a village outside of the village where some of the warriors stayed until they were ready to go back in. Yeah. And some never came back. Yeah. Some stayed in that village forever because they could never go back to normal. So most warrior culture knows that. Yeah. But you can't send them there and turn them into something and not turn them back. Right. Before they come in. That sounds like the most unfair things of all.
And, you know, and that's the thing, like, because you start processing out of the military, you know, it takes you, 30 days or 2 months or whatever. Oh, yeah, like and then it's just like they stamp your paper. And I remember it like it was this crazy moment. She stamps my paper. She's like, all right, that's it. You're not in the Army anymore. And I'm like, what?
Yeah. Plus, plus you can't say that, by the way. Saying that alone is not right.
Yeah, and like I'm
in the Army forever.
You know, and that's kind of one of the things. It's like, all right. And I remember walking out.
That's such a fucked up way of saying it.
That's
the last thing you want to hear at that moment.
It was very...
Like, you just got ostracized from the tribe.
Yeah, she's like, hey, just so you know, you're not of any use to us anymore.
Yeah, like you're not part of the brotherhood anymore.
Get the fuck out of here.
It's such a fucked up way of saying that.
Yeah, and I remember being like, at the time I remember thinking like, how dare you?
Yeah, exactly.
I've got my uniform on.
Like so what does that mean? Like, I'm just a fake now?
Yeah. And I remember thinking to myself, everything that went into that. Everything
all that I sacrificed. All
for that, and it's over. And I was like, what is going on?
That has to change. On the Army side, this has to change. The way they process out. That must fuck so many people up.
Yeah. I mean, for me, it was, you know, because I made the decision to get out so that I could better serve and be with my family and stuff, you know? And so that was my decision to do. As a family, we talked about it, but, you know, that was ultimately the thing. So, you know, it wasn't like, all right, it wasn't something like I was in it for 20 years, salty, broken, like, okay. Like, it wasn't, we didn't leave on terms where I was like, I cannot wait to get back. It was kind of like, I'm picking one world over the other. And I knew that it had to do that. I had to do that. Yeah. So,
that doesn't mean that either. You still served.
Right.
It's not like, you know what I mean? It's not, that's
it was
not
a
right.
pretty harsh moment. Yeah. But, you know, so that was the big thing. So a year ago running that marathon, and, you know, I had ran, I think, twice in the past, 6 months. I busted up my ankle. And, you know, the whole mental toughness thing, I think we're completely having the wrong conversation about it.
Enduring pain is not mental toughness.
No, not at all. And, you know, so sure, that was that. But that was 100% an emotional expression for me, you know, and it was not something that There was no trick or thinking like I'm going to think really hard. Like, no, it was like I need to face this situation at an emotional level as well,
for 4 hours
and express that for. I was 7.5 hours or something. Yeah, it was awful. It was bad.
What?
It was so bad. I ran.
Oh yeah, you ran slower on an airline.
Yeah,
that's true. Yeah,
it was like
yeah,
just
And with a bum leg.
Yeah, it was just up
7 hours.
7.5 hours.
Fucking kidding me.
At an hour, my hip flexors were fried out, and I was like, I looked down.
Didn't I say running is bad for you? How many times did I say that? Running is bad for you?
I'll
just
be honest,
saying.
when he first told the thing, it was like I did the marathon on the assault runner without training. I was like ballsy. But now, as you're describing it, I was like, that was really fucking stupid.
Insane. Right? Yeah, exactly.
It was not smart.
There was nothing.
You're halfway through. No. It's been 4 hours, and you go, I got 20 kilometers to go.
Yeah, it was.
Oh my God.
But you know, and we've raised. You know, we kind of had Spencer Hendel, a CrossFit Games athlete. He came down. He said, "Hey, I see what you're doing. I want to do." So he skied one. We involved community.
He skied a marathon.
He skied a marathon.
You're all fucked up. I'm just saying.
Yeah.
Can we go back to strongman? Jesus Christ.
Yeah. That was. I think that was actually the last time I ran. Like, that's it.
Forever.
Yeah. I don't need. Why?
Yeah. Exactly. Why run?
Okay. I was like you train for a marathon, like, and then you continue to run. Like, what's wrong with you?
Yeah. Exactly. Like, you've done it. Stop. Yeah. You know how bad it is.
Just think of all the think about all the running you didn't have to do though by not training. Sure, it took you twice as long as you wanted it to.
Yeah.
But that really only means like a week or two of training. You know? So fuck it. Put all your hours in and show.
Yeah, exactly. I'm good for 12 years.
Yeah. But really, so one of the things I think that really definitely helped was looking at movement as a way of expressing and getting to really know yourself. And then what I would do actually for a while is after every training workout or every workout, I would just open up a notebook and just write whatever came down. And it was 5 minutes, and sometimes it was just babbling nonsense.
But he's talking to Mike, certainly, right?
Yeah.
He's discovering who Mike is.
And through that writing, and some of it was like, wow, I have these moments of insight, and other times it was just like, I'm just talking about the workout, like whatever. But that
forcing
was
it.
Yeah, no force it. Like, don't judge it.
Yeah.
Don't force it. Just be honest and just get it going. And so that over time, really, I was like, okay, I'm kind of reintroducing myself to who I am, and also confronting some things that we do know, like the mind-body connection is amazingly powerful. And when we train, something happens, and then there's not only this catharsism with the writing, but like you're also facing it too, and that's like one of the, I think, the biggest things.
And you're feeling it deep.
And like you're putting it out there, and no one else is reading it. You know,
people still don't understand the act of writing something down, like the act of actually doing that. Even if nobody else sees it, there is a catharsis to that, which means like it now has left your body. Maybe not fully, but some of it has gone from you to the paper then now it's there in your world.
You felt and you put it into action. There's such a power.
And I think we talk about how often like words are very limiting, right? Words are limiting. They kind of can diminish the power of feeling and all that stuff. But by taking all that feeling that you hadn't processed, put it into words, then you get to see it from that angle. Right. You know, you can see like, oh, it's coming out of me that way. Right. What's wrong with that?
Right. And then, like, you know, and I think Richard talked about it at Coaches Week as well, where it's like, if a trauma happens and you don't face it and express it, then that's gonna like oxidize your sort of thing and whatnot. And so,
and it will come back. You will reenact it for as long as you don't deal with it. I don't care if it's 30 years. It can be 3 months, 3 years, 30 years. It's just gonna keep periodically being reenacted until you deal with it. Like, your body does not forget anything. Right. It's crazy.
And in my experience, it has been an amazing way to deal with it. And it's been a way to...
So the movement and then the writing?
So movement and then the writing,
So you feel, then you express. You put it into action.
Yep. And I think sometimes too, you know, so the whole kind of mindset thing, and I think that's a word that gets like thrown around. And it's like, what are you saying? You know, like it's crap. Like it's crap out there. But my take on mindset, it's a mode of self-communication with yourself that's going to drive actions as expressions of inner beliefs, and that's what it is. So really, what it is for you is a way to communicate also with yourself, And if you are not communicating with yourself, then you are not going to be able to, optimize whatever your situation is, or improve or get better or any of that. So the writing after the workout, it was this very visceral connection of also being able to communicate with yourself. And sometimes I would find myself writing the same thing, like time after time after time after time. And then the seventh time, something like really, really important would come up and really personal. Like, you got to punch through those layers. Some of that stuff is buried so deep. Yeah. But you're really you're moving the body and the mind, you're connecting and you're thinking, you're just fucking being aware, you're paying attention. And then you're really driving that through
true
with
communication, because you're not objective based. You're not trying to get anything. No. It's just you're just opening the gate and
the whatever. Three kind of rules that I would set are, don't judge it.
Yeah.
Be brutally honest, and just get the pen moving. Those are the constraints. And if you can do that, shortly thereafter, I would do it immediately after. A physical movement, it's an amazing, amazing combination. And for me, that was really, I think, the start of, reintroducing, putting it out there, and making some powerful changes.
Yeah, so it's expression.
Can you tie, Julian, any of that process into something like, say, what we talk about with the task negative network, something like that, totally. Where you go from doing, and then you're able to kind of reflect?
No, because it comes down to a few things. First of all, it's very interesting, the expressing, because on a completely different thing, but the podcast has done that for me. Since we've been doing the podcast, I learn faster because I can empty my brain, I can express it. But the fact is, once it's on the podcast, I'm not talking, it's out there. Now that it's out there, it's not in here.
Because until it's out there, you're trying to figure out how you're going to deliver it.
It stays there. Yeah. I can't explain it any better than that until it's on the paper, it's in there. Me, once the podcast is on YouTube, it's not here anymore. I've expressed it. But expression, if someone has heard it, then it's not in my brain anymore because it's been said. Now it's not mine anymore. So once it's on the paper, it's not yours anymore.
Right.
And that action seems to have so much power.
I also think that there's only so much space for those things to be.
That's true as well.
And so like you said, in your head, it's I got to make room. I need to get, because I'm thinking about putting this out. I'm thinking about, I need to get it out there, and then something else come in. And in your case, it seems from the outside looking in, like John and Mike can't live in the same fucking space.
No.
They can't. No. And so, which means some of John's got to go.
Yeah.
And so some of that just needs to get expressed, whether it's about a part of John that needs to leave or a part of Mike that's got to be there. But at some point, it's got to get out.
I'll explain what they did. If you guys remember the phylogenetic hierarchy, right? You got the flow, fight, flight, and freeze, right? I was asked if you can go from freeze to flow. And I said no, but that's not entirely true. There is a way to go from freeze to flow, but it comes down to resetting literally who you are. You have to kill Mike to get to John, basically. So there's a very powerful, it's basically like endorphin type called dynorphin, right? And it serves as nature's mercy button, but what it is really, it's something that wipes out everything that you have completely. Why does it exist? We think it's, for example, one of the things is it allows you to do something truly random. What is dynorphin? It's like, you've seen that on a gazelle gets caught by a panther or something, right? And he completely stays like this. It's not dead yet, and yet he doesn't move. That's actually because he's pumping dynorphin. Dynorphin, first of all, if you're going to die, allows you to not feel it. But also it allows you to, that means every single defense mechanism you tried failed. So you need to try something truly random. To do that, you need to first wipe out everything. That's what dynorphin does. So that would allow you to go from freeze back to flow. But to do that, that means that I have to completely wipe out everything and whoever you were before. Then you could create somebody completely new from there. This is what you see in people that have near-death experience. It's not that far off, I guess. Yeah, exactly. There's a slip for you right there. When you basically have faced death to the point where you truly thought you were going to die, right? That's when the dynorphin gets pumped. And you have people that talk about that with near-death experience that change, that were a different person coming out. Like their values are different. They start to look at life differently. Richard went through that. I did. It changes everything from your behavior to who you are. That's what they did. They know how to do it. This is behavior modification, where you get close enough to that fucking point of dying. So they kill Mike to create John. And then once they get you enough to the stage where you've let go of everything, then they get to put what they want in. And at that stage, there's honestly not that much you can do about it in those conditions. So that's what happens. Except me, when I faced it, I got to choose who came out. You, the army did. And so that's the problem. So you get into flow with a different person. Now, you're supposed to change that. And to do that, that means like, we're going to have to go this way and just take out John, but piece by piece. Mm-hmm. The only way you take John piece by piece is by replacing with Mike, but you can't do it like not the way they did it. They did it in a very short amount of time. The problem is you can't do that the other way. Or yes, you would have to get really close to I'm going to kill myself and come off of that, and Mike would be stronger, which is more or less what happened. You had to truly face like I'm going to kill myself and then go, and then that's close enough that Mike can start winning over. But the problem is if you don't get that close, it's extremely hard to do. That's the problem with behavior modification, is to come back from that is a monster work. But so you got close enough that you were able to build Mike the other way. And so the expression is very important because that's when you're gonna get to flow every time. Like all that stuff has to be anchored into something, and that's what the expression does. It anchors Mike into reality. Right? So it's the only way we can help people that come back like that is we have to anchor Mike in reality. And so that's a great way of doing it. But they're going to have to find a way to do that. Otherwise, the nervous system will pump out John every single time there's a stress. The biggest issue is every time there's a need for a fight, John pops up because he's not out yet. Why? Because you don't trust Mike to take care of the problem.
Yeah, and in my experience, what I've gone through too is some of this stuff, and using. I think we have an amazing ability to use workouts and movements that are going to bring you through that, and that's like obviously the phylogenetic workouts and experiences and everything like that that are going to touch you, present you opportunities to really go through that process. And what you might realize, what I realized was like, yeah, Mike needs basic strength training. Like he's been buried for however many years.
Exactly.
Like you need to rebuild him. And so when you look at that, it'd be like, okay, Mike needs to be rebuilt, and I'm going to be part of that. I'm going to be reintroducing, training, building up basic stuff.
But Mike training,
not John. And like when you can accept that, then you're like, wow, this is great. Every day is an opportunity to improve. It's not just like wishful thinking.
And so when he's writing, Mike is writing.
Yeah.
And that's the key. Is Mike trained? Mike wrote. So now you're a little bit more Mike.
Yeah.
And that's super important. Yeah.
Yeah, and like realizing too that like John's not going to go out without a fight because John's a fighter too.
Yes,
and
exactly.
so John wants
he ain't dying.
They didn't make John so that he could be a total pussy.
Yeah, exactly.
You know what I mean?
I am not Clark Kent. Let's be honest. Yeah, exactly.
That's not the John formula.
No,
exactly.
And it's like that dude is going to come back, and then there's going to be, and then that's I think we see now self-sabotage.
Yeah.
You're making some progress, and then you, with me at least, 2 steps forward, 15 back, and for what? And so
but you go back.
And so like for me too, one of the things was I cut alcohol out of my life for now 9 months now, and I don't think I'm going to go back to it.
Any fix is
and that's where the fix is. I think caffeine's up next, or sugar.
Yeah, exactly.
Maybe sugar's up next.
Yeah, but he has to be. Yeah, but Mike has to be enough. No fix means John is going to come back. No fix means John and Mike are going to talk.
Yeah.
Right. If John is too strong, then it's going to be one talking over the other.
Right.
Right. So Mike has to be strong enough. That's why you're doing it at your own pace. It's fine.
Yeah.
Eventually, you want no fix to have that true conversation. But Mike has to be strong enough to be able to take it.
And that saying that they're going to talk, I think, is very powerful, and inviting us to welcome that.
Yes.
Because if it's just like, don't think about John, kill John, this, that, it's like that's not going to work either.
No.
And like, because you can't control when that dude's going to pop back up.
And he will.
Yeah. But
if you don't talk,
And if you're there talking, it's like, look, you can agree to disagree on some things, but like, and really taking ownership and accountability and awareness to drive that action for who you ultimately feel like.
And eventually, again, if they talk, eventually there's going to be a Mike and John together.
Yeah.
A Jake. Right. But because John is strong and he has some good sides too.
Without a doubt.
When the shit hits the fan, John is going to take care of the shit. So there's got to be they got to talk. So at some point they can merge because again, otherwise you'd be denying that you did all that, which is not. This is not to do either. But that's what we saw with No Fix November, where people use it as a deprivation thing. They're like, oh, I can't eat that. I'm like, that's not what I said.
Right.
By the way, no one has a gun to your head telling you to do it.
Yeah, the amount of people from that have turned it into like, okay, so am I not allowed to eat any vegetables? And I'm like, what are you talking about?
No, but it goes even more. Like people say, I'm not going to listen to music. I'm like, I didn't take enough stuff out that you have to add another form of torture. Like, I don't get it. But so it's not a deprivation thing. So we don't need John to go away. We just need Mike to become stronger.
And I think the deprivation and the punishment and the association that I punished myself, therefore, like, look at me. Bad. It's like, that is failing us. Yes. That is failing us at the most personal level. That, continuing to, like, what are you really trying to prove?
Plus, what? There's no being ashamed of John, because that's what it comes down to. Is that too? Is like John is bad. No, that is not the point.
He just can't live here right now.
Yeah.
John is not designed for this life. Right. So that's the problem. I'm not bringing you guys back slowly and stuff like that too. Is like, and let's be honest. You go back home and. When you were there, life was simple, but you had honor, you had a code, you could rely on each other, and you go back to today's Western society. Mm-hmm. That can't feel good either, because Twitter is not what you fought for, I'm pretty sure. Right? Oh, come on, that has to affect you, right?
And in our town, like, we don't live in a military town. It's as far away from a military town as there is. And it's just like, you feel forgotten about. People don't care. Yeah. And people's like, oh, this and that. And
I would have to look around and go, this is who I fought for, that asshole over there. Yeah. That would get me anyway. But once in a while, I know I don't want you to. He's very nice, and people in your town, don't worry, it's all good. But that would get me. But so you're also trying to help others, right?
Yeah.
So, okay.
Yeah. So I started a company called Between the Years, which is my ability to try to continue serving, or my opportunity to try to continue serving. So we do like physical movement combined with like mindset and emotional things, and then a huge element of it is the journaling piece as well, the writing. That's that expression piece. So taking really people. It started as experiences where I just said like, hey, you're going to show up at 10 o'clock at the gym. Bring 2 pairs of pants, pair of boots, jacket or whatever, and lead them through an experience that would really punch down layer, and expose them to who they maybe are. And now that what's amazing is when I started really learning more and more about StrongFit, I was like, oh my God, that's what's happening. Yeah. Because I didn't know like why it was working. Yeah. And people would have really like life-changing awareness moments. But now I was like, that's amazing. That's what's going on there.
The thing too is you can do it. Like that's the problem I see for the veteran community and everything, is like you have to push the needle far enough that we get close to that, dynorphin moment where you get close to, look, and again, it's not about killing John, but you're going to have to get close enough to the edge that you go, all right, I mean, like I need to wipe out the other shit and find out, and now work on Mike. Yeah. And that requires the knowledge to be able to push people there, but without them breaking, without them like that's
right. And that's a big thing for like my role in it is to facilitate.
They can only happen with you.
And one of the things that they can do, like there's like a 3-month program that they can do, and they do it online. They kind of do it. There's the communal intelligence element where there's a tribe, there's a community, so you can really then share your experiences as well. So there's like 1 workout a week. There's a corresponding mindset topic to it, which is like a concept for us to consider. But really, like, don't repeat the words and don't just parrot someone else's quote. Yeah. Right. Here's a concept. Take it, apply it, look for it in your own life, make it yours. It's basically a constraint for how to approach things. And the physical workout is directly related to that. So there's an expression element as well of a mindset principle. And so that's kind of my job to develop that. But then they go through that, they have a journal practice, and they really get to reintroduce themselves or find out more about who they are. And these are people, there's CEOs are doing it, doctors are doing it, college students, veterans, obviously, active duty, And it's really, I think, the best way to be involved in personal development. And that's, I think, where the personal development mind space, I don't like using those words, but for
life coach.
Yeah, that kind of stuff, you know, but like podcasts, like even this, like you can't talk back to this. Videos, you can't really talk back. Like you need to be involved in your own pursuit, physically, mentally,
that's
emotionally.
That's the problem we see all the time.
Yeah.
So what you saw work the best is that, right? Is digging for whatever is inside that you're not necessarily either expressing or feeling or whatever. So you go get the feeling and then you express it in a written stuff.
Yeah, and having a physical, you know, for example, like
expression of that, right?
Yeah. And so one of the weeks, so to speak, is like letting go. So there's a mile farmer carry, and the topic is of like letting go, and you know, I go and I provide some constraints, some theory about it and whatnot. But then like you go do it. So you pick up the kettlebells, dumbbells, farmer walks, whatever, and you fucking go walk for a mile. And I don't know where you're doing it or really if you're going to, but it's on you. And then afterwards, you know, you write about your experience and about that and about
and
the
when you let go.
And letting go.
What happened when you let go?
Yeah. And so what else?
Were you a total failure when you let go of the farmer's walk?
That's a big one for people. Like I should have gone further. And it's like
we see that on the sandbag all the time.
Yeah.
What goes through their head when they drop the sandbag, knowing full well you're going to drop it sooner or later.
Yeah.
Right?
I had that.
Half of them, what they say when they let go of the sandbag, it is the most fascinating stuff.
Yeah.
Me, I say, good. I don't want to carry that shit anymore.
Right.
But the half of the people say, like, how much of a failure am I?
Yeah.
But that means that from the beginning, you could not win.
Right.
Because you were going to drop it anyway.
Yes.
Welcome to life. That sandbag, you're not going to carry it for the rest of your life.
Right.
So even knowing that, you cannot stop yourself from being a failure when you drop it.
If your expectation was perfection, then we have a big problem. We need to talk about that. But really, it's like,
exactly.
But that's a huge thing. It's like, well, we see the shame, we see self-sabotage, and it's like, were you expecting pure and utter perfection?
By the way, what is perfection? Because we told you, like, for example, sandbag, walk until you drop it.
Yeah.
So where did you thought you were going? China?
Right.
Was it like at some point you're going to have to stop?
Yeah.
And yet that feeling of shame or anger there is something fascinating.
And I think that's an important thing that probably should be overcome, because I'm going to guess that you're taught, especially as you're being kind of reshaped for what you need to do in the military, you're taught that failure is of pretty high consequence.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like they don't take even minor failures. Minor mistakes are very major.
Yes.
You know, so
somebody's dying. Yeah.
So I mean, you see it from it kind of goes back to like the brown Skittles analogy, but but there's a reason it's real fucking important that your shirt be tight and locked. You know what I mean? All of that stuff. Yeah. But every little mistake is a big mistake.
Right.
And then you have to go out into the world where like now you need to fail a lot.
Yeah.
And you need to be okay with it. And that's a tough thing to get over.
Oh, it's not failing. That's the thing. Like, this is actually something, like, even in seminar, I think I'll go deeper into then. Because it's like, what is it that you were expecting then?
Right.
Well,
why is dropping it failure? That's, I think, the real conversation.
Yeah.
Why is dropping the bite failure?
Right. And failure is always we get this objective versus constraints.
Yes, exactly.
That failure is always only exists adjacent to an objective.
Right, but so that's kind of what I want to know then. What was the objective?
Right.
That's what it brings about.
We're like, what were you trying to do?
Right, but that's the whole question now. If dropping the bag, knowing you will drop it, is a failure, then what was the objective? What starting means failure. So what was the objective then? You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Like, so that means was that expressing the fact that you feel you're a failure then? Because it's not about the bag.
No.
So then it's about you.
Right.
So that means that you wanting to say I'm a failure was just right around the corner, waiting to be put out.
Yeah.
So that's what this is about then.
Yeah, and I think one of the things that I've seen with people, and God bless these people because they have the courage to
it's a hard
to say that, and I'm like
all the respect in the world.
100%.
That hurts.
And so it's like, I mean, it gives me
so
literally
goosebumps. It hurts so bad when you get there. Yep.
And when they say
you have to have the balls to do it
without a doubt, and to put this up with some people they've never met, they never will meet.
Yep.
It's like that is
what did you just do to me?
Yeah.
Yep.
And so when we see people that really are beating themselves up over failure, it's like I like to split it and be like, okay, was it task related or personal related?
Yeah. Yes.
And it's usually always personal related.
Yeah.
It's not like, well,
they were waiting to say they were a failure.
Yeah. And it's like, well, it's not the fact, because you putting them down was not a failure. The task failure was not really the
always
thing.
going to happen.
It was always going to happen. But it's the personal failure that now we can be like, okay, let's pause here for a second, dig in, and look at some things that we have to look at.
I'm gonna make people carry a sandbag with a notebook in their pocket. The second they drop it, write down what you think.
So, and I did that at St. Paul. I did that at our place.
Yeah.
Yep, because I like, and that's my thing. Like I know now that.
Right.
And what I captured on that paper,
I like it a lot.
Was it needed. I also needed to express it and look at it and think about it, and and that's part of it. Is
I like the journaling a lot.
Yeah, it's amazing.
I like the journaling a lot because that's expression, and then it belongs to the paper now. Because I can totally relate because of the podcast. Once someone sees it, it's not mine anymore. Then my brain is free from it.
Right.
Otherwise, it spins way too much.
Yeah. And with this stuff too, like my recommendation is to do for 1 week also. Like you don't have to turn into like Ernest Hemingway. And
I was about to say you're not.
You're not.
Let it go.
10 minutes maybe. Like
do like Elsa. Let it go.
Yeah, like a little bit. Like get into a little bit of a habit. Experiment with morning or night.
Just right.
Because that's different. Yeah, just right.
Right.
Like that's the constraint. Like don't judge. Be honest and just get the pen moving.
Yeah.
But like what you can do is this topic maybe of failure. Okay, let's just take that. Write about it for 5 minutes a day.
What does that mean?
For 1 week, because on Monday it's going to look like something totally different than on Thursday, and life is going to happen. So you get as many reps as you can in a week. You're not going to. It's not going to be a month. It's not going to be a year.
One of them will be true, by the way.
One of them.
Yeah.
And it's probably going to take you a couple days to be like, oh, I got to something good now. If your expectation is right off the bat to have enlightenment and be, Billy Shakespeare, that's not
Yeah,
good.
we have that too, where people expect like some kind of a word from God every time they use a sandbag. I'm like, by the way, no one says you have to hate yourself every time. You're allowed to be happy too. I'm just saying, if you walk the sandbag once in a while, you can come back and go, I killed that. I am happy about myself.
And like we see that all the time.
No one is ever happy. Ever.
No.
I was like, I say go find yourself. All you found is misery.
Yeah.
What does that tell you? I say go find yourself. That's all I said. It's so funny.
And
I'm like, guys, we need to talk.
Yeah. And the driving factor is so much of this stuff is like you went out and you gave everything you had, and what you came back with was you suck.
Yeah. Right.
That's a problem.
Right.
Like we need to reshape what's
because their stuff, more people is like, oh, I could have gone further.
Yeah.
But also, first of all, why didn't you?
Why didn't you?
And second of all, at some point, no.
Right.
They were always going to drop it.
Right.
It is such a fascinating thing.
Yeah.
Their reaction is priceless. I like the journaling a lot.
Yeah, I think when you describe it, I think the powerful thing about that is I'm just guessing, purely speculating here, but a lot of the issues is as somebody comes back, when they start kind of going down the hole a little bit, and I'm going to guess there's issues of reintegration. That's often with communication and connection with your outside world, your family, your friends. And then there's the self issue also. You don't know who you are, who you need to be, how to make that change. What I like about that expression is it's like your baby steps, right? It's like, okay, first, let's just observe who I am and who I was. Then let's express who I am, who I was.
Let's express.
And then as it goes, you'll get good at it. Yeah. You'll also understand then how to process those things with words then, which means then when something comes up conversationally with your wife or the kids or whatever, that you're able to actually,
That's a very
where
good
you're
point.
at. So you've
and you can use words.
Yeah, you've started to express yourself as yourself, and you've gotten better at it. And then now you can express yourself to others, and then you can start making connections that matter again and keeping those things close. And without doing that thing first, what you're doing is we're just trying to okay, honey, let's have a date night, and then you're just gonna fucking, you know what I mean? Like it's all these things that are only surface level that you're just checking boxes.
Yeah.
And like, okay, well, people say they should talk to their friends. Okay, I'll do that. I'll go have some beers. You know what I mean? So you just kind of do the things that normal people do, but you don't have those skills as the
And I
person
think
that
the
you are.
writing down allows Mike to be heard too.
Yeah.
Because Mike has been shut up for a long time. And now writing down Mike is being heard.
Right.
That's who's talking.
Yeah.
I think that's what the journal is. That it's hearing Mike
and hearing you describe it. I also like that because we always joke that it's we're going to bring in Mike, we're going to kill John, right? The truth is what's got to happen is they got to integrate. And parts got to fall off, and so this is a way for Mike to communicate. What about John's got to go. Figure out where to make space for each other, and then how to walk forward as one.
So maybe John and Mike have to go. And Jack has to come up.
Well, and I think that's like getting to know yourself, and that's the big thing. Is like it might be like a combination, a hybrid. It might be like both of them. Like, hey, elements of John, like no,
exactly.
Elements of Mike, definitely not. Like, but you can now.
So there's an evolution of you.
Exactly.
Right, exactly. And the idea that he has to. That's the problem too. Is that he has said, "Oh, that guy or that guy." I'm like, but you're not 20 twice. You're 40. So that means, you know what I mean? Like you have grown every step of the way. You are a different person, a new one, better. So you can have both of them. Yeah, I mean, like that idea that it's always that weird, like we are that person or this or this or like, I'm like, there's an evolution. That means like you're not, it's, who said that? Eric Leitches? Yeah, actually, you can never cross the same river twice. Fuck, we posted it, I can't remember who said it. You cannot cross the same river twice because it's not the same river and you're not the same man.
Right. And if you think you're never going to change, like, that's death.
Yes, yeah,
that is death.
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
and I think that's.
Well, that's a suicide, right? There is no evolution.
Right.
I will never change. I will stay like this forever.
Yeah.
That's
and I think that's often the tone with which it's amongst the suicide. It's going to be like this forever. It's not going to change. I'm only going to make it worse.
And you know what they all said though? Like all the guys that jumped and survived. The second they jumped, they realized they did not want to die. Oh, I found that was because at that moment they had the click. But the problem is they needed to jump to get the click. You know what I mean? Like we go back to that's the problem is if you have to get that close to actually being able to change. You better have a support system because that means we're going to lose a lot of them in the process.
Well, and I think that too, like within the veteran community as well, we have, it's a very complicated solution for a problem to try to provide a solution for. And it's so diverse, right?
And it's too much money in it.
And it's so, and
$9 billion for PTSD. That
and
means
you've got pharma companies.
Yes.
I mean, we're fighting so many battles in just terms of health there.
Yeah.
But like, you get out of the Army or you get out of the Navy or whatever. The things that you used to do that made you feel really good, in the morning, you'd work out. You'd work out with your teammates. Now, you liked some of them more than others and hated others, but like nonetheless, you had that community element. And you were actually hopefully like learning some stuff as well. You go out of that and now no one's telling you like, hey, you got to go to PT or you got to do this, you got to do that. We're going to training, you're going to school. You're on your own. You're on your own. And like what I really do believe about the gym and fitness and movement, call it whatever you're going to call it or subscribe to whatever you're going to subscribe, combined with that journaling element is like those are readily accessible.
Yeah.
They are super cheap. I mean, a pen and a notebook costs you $3.
Yes.
And when you look at saying like, I'm going to reintegrate and be in that community with moving my body, with connecting to others, I mean, that is a solution I think that we have to start really promoting more. And what better place than CrossFit gyms? Because if there's one thing about them,
there's a lot of military.
And
I think CrossFit has done a very good job over the course of its whole existence on showing appreciation and involvement with the military, and I think that's really kind of been side by side with it for at least a decade.
People have to understand Mike needs help and support, and Mike is a kid. He needs support and help and he needs to be trusted. And Mike needs trust.
Right.
We need to trust Mike. In that case, you need to be able to trust Mike. So there's a support system in place, but not drugs, not the fucking VR stuff or PTSD and everything. It has to go past that.
And that's where I think connecting the body and the mind together is...
Because that's another step. Reich wrote about it 100 years ago. Yeah.
Because that is it. And it's simple, but it's not easy to do. You know what I mean? But it really is...
But it also takes... The pharmaceutical industry, let's be honest, a bunch of suits that look at a chemical reaction. It takes the people who have been through it saying like, no. Let's put all the bullshit away. Yeah. You do the work. Because again, the pills, all that stuff, it's someone else doing the work. We go back to the same.
And like we said about a lot of the times, the way some of those pills work, is it's really more a matter of making things less bad than good.
Yeah, so if they don't kill themselves, it's a victory.
Right.
That's what upsets me the most with all this. If they don't kill themselves, we're good.
Yeah.
I'm like, fuck no.
Yeah.
No, that's a horrible way of counting. That is such an unfair. You send people there, and then when they come back, if you don't kill yourself, that's good enough.
Yeah.
That is such a fucked up.
And it's
way.
also like it doesn't have to get to that point.
Yeah.
Like you can be sitting in wherever you're listening, you can be sitting in your life and take inventory and be like, pretty good.
Yep.
So why wouldn't you then continue to want to evolve and get better? Like it doesn't have to be, holy crap, I'm a bottle of booze a day, wife hates me, I'm abusive to everyone around me. Like it's not something you owe it to yourself, but you also owe it to everyone else you interact with to try to push yourself a little bit better.
Yeah, and to start before you get to that stage.
Before you get to that point. Because then you're just rolling the dice at that point. Like maybe it'll work, maybe not. But man, like being proactive and
I think being proactive on the individual part is extremely important. And often though, my question to you is, so when you came back, were you, this wasn't 15, 20 years ago, you know what I mean? This is pretty recently. So when you're out, is there anything saying, hey Bill, now that you're out, just so you know, there are some things that might line up. You may feel like is any of that communicated to you?
So
is it improving now over what it was before?
So I went through a medical sort of out processing thing with the VA, and they've obviously been in the news quite a bit with just failing to serve people. I was diagnosed with adjustment disorder, which at first I was like,
fuck does that even mean?
Yeah, and that was my thing, and I was kind of like, whatever.
I'm pretty sure everyone in this room's got that.
Yes, I do. That's
I don't
for
know
sure.
what adjustment disorder is, but I don't adjust.
I had it when I was 6. What do you
What's
mean?
amazing about that too is like I was like, I didn't like there was a hit to the ego where you're like, so you're calling me broken.
Yeah.
On top of
That's
that,
basically what
we're
you're
going back to the right. So now they kicked you out, and now they're saying broken.
Yeah. And it was like really this thing, and I'll have to give Kay credit. She was like, you might need to actually look into this, not the definition that they're telling you,
but that
like, could you consider maybe that there's something going on? Like, fine,
maybe,
whatever.
Maybe, whatever. Exactly.
So that was
what
something.
Does she know?
Yeah. Your intuition. Like,
exactly.
Think you know me?
Yeah.
Anyway, so I had that. So I went to a counselor, a VA counselor, and it didn't go well. I basically got scolded for why, like, you're kidding me? You came back, you got 10 fingers, 10 toes, 2 arms, 2 legs. You're telling me how great your life is. And I was just like, fuck you, dude. And left.
Exactly.
And they're like, no. I'm like, first of all, you were late. Second of all, you're incredibly unprofessional. I'm not wasting my time with you.
Yeah.
You're an amateur. And so that didn't really go well. So,
I'm gonna guess you didn't go like.
Okay, well maybe you shouldn't have though.
Yeah.
That dude is a dick. What is that? Like 22?
Well, I don't know. It was.
Yeah, but come on. Really?
But it was like one of those things.
I hope
Like,
he's
okay,
22.
so then what that did to me, and like, go to a therapist? Hell no.
Yeah.
Not gonna do it. I'm not gonna do it.
So that one avenue for a traditional avenue for help was basically you took that away from yourself. Right away.
Yeah.
It kind of was taken away from you.
Took it away.
Yeah.
I would not have taken it. I would take that shit now, and I'm not coming back from Afghanistan.
I certainly would have walked out of that room. However,
Yeah.
There is a little bit of personal accountability. He could have looked at that objectively and said, "Oh, I still need help. How can I get it?"
But there was
that's not how this works. That is not how this works.
But on
this
my
side.
level, my level too.
He didn't shoot the guy. I think that's an improvement.
Yeah, that's a win.
That means
It was also convenient though, and this is the thing where like being in that environment, in that headspace, it was really convenient to be like, see? Like
I knew it.
Yeah.
You were wrong. That's what basically is. That's what he just said.
But it was really one of those things where it's just like conveniently this guy was that, you know. And so it was like a way for me to shirk responsibility. It was a way for me not to it was a way for me to avoid the things. Now whether it was and so that was
but that shows you how many of them have committed suicide because there was that guy and then another thing. Mm-hmm. Like sometimes it's 2 things, man. 2 sleeps is enough, and now you're fucked.
Yeah.
Like that's it. 2 years later, it's suicide.
Yeah.
Out of that alone, maybe if you had, if you had like a cool guy, empathetic, going like, dude, sit down, let's talk. Human being too.
Right.
That alone tells you it can make all the difference in the world. But but how precarious human life is.
Right.
That one dude talking to you like this, 3 years later, might have committed suicide. You know what I mean?
And
I'm not blaming him. I'm not blaming him for it. You know what I mean? But life sometimes hinges
But you also
on
have to
moments.
understand
When your role in that system is to pull away from that problem, pull people away from that.
It didn't help. Let's put it this way.
Definitely didn't do the job.
Because he kind of was like, you don't have a problem.
Right.
You don't have a problem, and like I can't fix you. And it's like that's the thing.
There you go.
You know, and that's the thing about coaches too, or others in your life is like, not everything is gonna be like I have the answer and I have the fix. It's just like having the conversation, be like, what's going on?
Yeah, just don't be a dick. How about that?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And so, like from a coaching standpoint too, and what I love about the StrongFit methodology too is like you're gonna have to figure out your own answers. And so what we're going to do is partner with you in a symbiotic relationship to facilitate some experiences where you can learn. But this isn't like, hey, here's the answer.
Right? Because there is no answer. That the only answer is you'll figure it out.
Right.
Right. But so your job in that sense is to go, dude, there's a way out.
Yeah.
Let's work on it.
Yeah.
What is it? I don't know yet. It's like the black swan. It's like there will be a black swan moment.
Right.
When and where, don't know. But let's get ready for when the black swan moment happens. Right. Because either it's I got better or it's I'm going to kill myself.
And the way I see it, just from the outside, Bill, is it sounds like what you're doing now is presenting in not an alternative, but a new opportunity for people to get served in maybe the way that you felt you were underserved, right? Meaning like, okay, going to someone to talk about it was a fucking really unpleasant experience for you. Now you have a situation between the ears where people can express to themselves first, and when they're ready to open up about it, they can as well. And you start to create that dialogue, and it's like you're filling in that spot where that guy fucked up, and then taking them further, then into movement, and into the bodies, and into progress.
And to everybody out there, you have a responsibility to help him. Yes. The American culture is always like veterans and, let's go bomb some country left and right. All right, so when they come back, you have to help.
Yeah.
Like in the conditions right now when they come back is... let's put it this way, that frustrates me. Yeah. Like we have a responsibility to help on that shit. You can't send fucking kids out there, go through behavior modification, change who they are, let them come back and not help. That is the one of the...
and there's a good point on that and we were talking about this morning, where like you can't just use your age either as a qualifier for how experienced you are, or an excuse for how inexperienced you are. Like your age is a fact, and that's about where it ends in my mind. Yeah. There are 18-year-old kids who were in Humvees driving down the streets of Baghdad in 2002 or 4, and so explain to me again why age now? Like you're 27 years old, and you can't.
Right.
You know what I mean? I'm sorry, I don't buy it. And so, but that is what we do. We a lot of. Every week at our gym, we do a hero workout. Now, obviously, that's an important part of us. We don't do a hero workout to crush people and to get fitter. We do it for the real reason to honor and remember those who have lost their life.
The original reason for the hero workout.
And their family. And like 99% of the people scale it and really actually get a decent workout. Not too bad if they scale it. But we read the bio. And this past week we had one. It was on Veterans Day, and the list of names of the family members. So and so is survived by mom, dad, and like for them, every single day is Memorial Day, and some of them, when you do the math, when they were born and the kids. I mean, these are
22,
these are
23,
kids.
Fuck, I remember me at that age. Oh my God.
And that's what we're doing. And like you think about 18 years old, I'm like, wow, really? That's where I was. Meanwhile, kids that I went to high school with were in a turret of a Humvee driving down the streets of Baghdad. And it's like that should make us all sort of stop a little bit. And you're right, like that is what we are doing. So yeah, when you say we should go bomb them, we should go do this, we should go. How about? Are you willing to send your own child?
Exactly.
And maybe we should.
That's what kills me with the conversation is like people are, their first option in American culture is violence. But you're not sending your kid.
Right. Like as long as it's someone else.
Yeah. But even if the first, and not that I agree, but even if the first answer is violence, then at least at the bare minimum, we take care of them when they come back.
Right.
That has to go with it.
Yeah.
Like you can't be patriotic and not shoulder some responsibility toward helping when they come back.
Yeah.
There's no fucking way.
So
there's no
so what's
way.
next?
So we have to help.
What's kind of this next chapter for Between the Years? What's that look like? What are you trying to do to take this further?
Yeah,
we kind of know where it sits. You're doing the doing.
Yep.
Where do you want to take it?
I definitely want to have it be a way to work with active duty and veterans. You know, right now I deal mostly with civilians or non-military folks.
You see the contempt when he said that. Yeah,
you know all those people with their
them people, those ones
with their weak backs and their soft emotions.
Anyway,
so you kind of see yourself getting more involved, like directly in that transition.
Yeah. So I would like to serve, continue to serve, and I think that's where I kind of hung the gun up, but like I need to continue serving, and. It's a very, very challenging position, though, because part of being in, you have to abandon a little bit of sense of self because you're part of a culture and a system and an organization that you're in. Your own individuality is good only to an extent, and like that's part of just that system. But nonetheless, for people who are towards the end of their careers or wondering or just like wanting to work on themselves, doing it together. Nonetheless, like you have to continue to stay in touch with that, and primarily within the veteran, within the active duty community. Obviously, like working with more individuals is always a passion to continue serving.
How many could you save though? You could save more people this way. Like how many could you save? Because the situation is so fucked up.
Yeah,
and you could make a dent. A dent alone would save a lot of people.
Well, and the way I look at it too is like, yes, it's definitely a way to continue serving, and it definitely, and it's really, I think, in my mind, like it is my best work. It is my passion to do, and I have no idea where it's gonna go.
Welcome to the club.
Yeah, and that's a thing.
Don't worry,
like,
it's all good.
No idea.
It's been done before. It still works.
And
Don't
it's
worry.
just like, but what I do know is that it's work that needs to be done. And
I
that's
agree
enough.
entirely.
That's enough for me.
Yep, I agree entirely. Those are usually the ones that are successful.
Yeah,
it is. At least that's been my experience in life. Yeah. Like you feel you got this has to be done. You start, it goes somewhere. Where? No idea.
Yeah,
but it always goes somewhere.
Yeah. So, Bill, if somebody has any questions or inquiries regarding your work,
you will have some.
Your sordid military history.
Exactly. Yeah. Yes. It's be after the podcast. You will not know what we will know, but we will know.
How can people get in touch with you as far as?
So Instagram's probably the best way. Okay. So my name, Bill Anthes, Anthes, or Between the Ears, BTWN the Ears.
Okay.
Bill at betweentheears.com is my email.
Cool.
So any of those channels, happy to chat.
Awesome.
Yeah.
All right, I think that's got us wrapped up.
Yeah.
All right, he's going to give me the whole lowdown on what really went on with Jeffrey Epstein.
Exactly.
I will let you guys know as soon as he's out of the room. So,
actually, there's a bunch of stuff before that I want to know. Anyway,
we'll
talk. Epstein. Why do we care? Dude, there's other stuff I want to know before
This goes all the way.
Whatever.
This goes all the way. But
I'll tell you what's most interesting.
Yeah, exactly. That's actually not that. And so there was a server, and
All right, cool. Well, we'll see you guys next week. That's Bill's information. StrongFit 1, Tyler Effin Stone, StrongFit.com, StrongFitEquipment.com, Julian'sCorner.com for all things Julian. StrongFitEquipment.eu and
UK32,
Rare Barracuda,
Manta Fitness.
Manta Fitness in Australia. I've forgotten them for the last few weeks.
Yep.
And there was one more. Support the podcast if you like. Podcast.strongfit.com. And that's it.
CF Motown.
CF Motown.
Right.
CF Motown on Instagram. If you want to, that way you can kind of see what more goes on in their gym and all of that stuff. So, all right, we'll see you guys next week. Thanks for watching.
I'll make him check in the middle of the podcast.
The problem is,
looking at it.
I'm actually not OCD at all. I'm reckless and irresponsible most of the time.
No, with that one.
The problem is, I'm also very forgetful. So therefore, I really
a lot of great action.
You'd be like, man, this guy sucks. No, so I'll get halfway through and I'll be like, did I fuck something up? And then statistically speaking, there's a pretty high chance that I did. So then I was like, well, I have to. Then I'll completely dial in, like, I need to solve this now, or I cannot think past this problem. So I confirm that it works, and then we're good.
But that lasts 20 minutes.
Yeah, and it'll chew me up. And then if Julian gets into something real good, I'll almost ruin it by like, listen, I know, but I just need to make sure before you go off.
So if you see him starting to look at the screen or stuff like that, that's why.
Yeah.
He's getting into that mode again.
Yeah,
but
I get nervous.
Kariana is here, so she'll be able to look and go like, you're fine. Okay.
There should be no reason. But
They've never been one, but
no, but this happened.
Always like this.
Yeah. Well.
No, just look at it and frown. Just do that. And then see his face.
What was that?
Okay. How are we on the intro?